Have a great show.
Thank you. All right, here is what we're doing tonight.
Tonight, Attorney General Jeff Sessions takes a grilling and vows to follow the law when it comes to investigating the Clintons and Uranium One.
That they will be done without political influence.
Is that enough for Republican Congressman Louis Gohmert, who believes the scandal has deep roots all over Washington? We'll ask him.
Bill Clinton had been a great voice for women in public and a great violator of women in private.
Why women are now going public. From the U.S. to Europe, the Harvey Weinstein effect taking down powerful men. And Republicans zero in on repealing Obamacare's individual mandates. Can they get it done? Congressman Dave Brat joins us live with the inside scoop on tax reform.
Hello and welcome to Fox News at Night. I'm Shannon Bream in Washington. Attorney General Jeff Sessions in the hot seat today, taking a grilling from both the left and the right while addressing the possibility of a special counsel investigation into Clinton-related matters, including the Uranium One deal. That deal gave Russia nearly control of roughly 20% of U.S. uranium production capacity. GOP lawmakers have been demanding action, even as two House committees have launched their own probes. Today, the Attorney General weighed in. Joining us now, Fox News Chief National Correspondent Ed Henry. All right, Ed, did the Attorney General give any indication of what will happen next on this?
Well, great to see you, Shannon. You know, the Attorney General is keeping his cards close to the vest. But what's clear tonight is that the hearing started out with Democrats trying to put Sessions and the president on the griddle over Russia. It ended with the Clintons and various Obama officials feeling the burn as well. Sessions took some of his own hits, basically changing his story from October when he testified under oath that he did not know of anybody in the Trump campaign having contacts with Russians, and he will have to face the music on that. But the Attorney General also made it very clear he's open to appointing a special counsel to investigate Bill and Hillary Clinton over their own Russia connection. Allegations that donations to the Clinton Foundation and big speaking fees to the former president were tied to a move by the administration of then President Barack Obama to greenlight a deal that gave Russian President Vladimir Putin access to a big share of the uranium supply right here in the U.S., which Sessions suggested he's looking at very aggressively.
Do I have your assurance that these matters will proceed fairly and expeditiously?
Yes, you can, Mr. Chairman, and you can be sure that they will be done without political influence, and they will be done correctly and properly.
In fact, when Republican Jim Jordan pressed Sessions on a second special counsel by saying it looks like the first one, Robert Mueller, was appointed after Democrats funded that dirty dossier to get ammunition to wiretap Trump officials, the Attorney General was very firm in saying, looks like is simply not good enough for him. He's going to be very deliberate, Shannon. He's going to be very careful before he moves forward on any of this.
All right. So, of course, the Democrats think a lot of this is a political move. How are they responding? How is the Attorney General responding to that?
Yeah, well, Democrats like John Conyers were very direct in this hearing, charging that because of all of the president's tweets, his public comments about the person he calls Crooked Hillary needing to be investigated, and Sessions fearing for his job, Democrats say that's the real reason for the shift in focus, and the Attorney General flatly rejected the idea he's giving in to political pressure.
Should the President of the United States make public comments that might influence a pending criminal investigation?
Should take great care in those issues. I have not been improperly influenced and would not be improperly influenced.
But it's clear Sessions has gotten the message on something else that has been bothering the president. Sessions revealed today there are now 27, that's right, 27 open investigations into who leaked various pieces of classified information. The president and his advisors, you know, they've been talking about what they call the deep state leaks that have been undermining the White House. They are now at the Justice Department. All over that tonight, Shannon.
That will make the president very happy, though he's
deal.
been frustrated on other points. All right, thanks so much, Ed.
See you.
All right, the topic matter at today's hearing was far more wide-ranging than just that. Included a whole host of questions from Democrats about perjury, presidential pressure, and supposed collusion with Russia in the run-up to the 2016 election. Ellison Barber joins us live with the rest of the story. Hello, Ellison.
Hi, Shannon. Yeah, as expected, Democrats peppered Sessions with questions about Russian contacts during the 2016 campaign, at times forcing Sessions to defend his integrity.
Once and for all, can we answer the question?
I am once and for all answering the question, Congressman.
You testified that your story has, quote, never changed. Is that correct?
We've added things that I did not recall at the time. And you're accusing me of lying about that? I say that's not fair, Mr. Jeffries.
Sessions adamantly maintained he did not lie to Congress when he said he was unaware of any communications between Trump campaign surrogates and the Russians. But that is what's at issue here. Inconsistencies between what Sessions previously told Congress and some things former campaign advisors are saying of late. There's Carter Page's testimony. Earlier this month, the former foreign policy advisor told the House Intelligence Committee he briefly spoke to Sessions about a trip he was taking to Russia. Sessions said today he doesn't doubt Page's story, but he doesn't remember it either. Then there's court documents released after another former campaign foreign policy advisor, George Papadopoulos, pled guilty to lying to the FBI. Those court documents say Papadopoulos suggested setting up a meeting between then-candidate Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin. Papadopoulos suggested it at a campaign national security meeting in March of 2016, a meeting led by Sessions. The Attorney General says he forgot about that meeting until he caught it in the news.
I have no clear recollection of the details of what he said at that meeting.
Sessions did remember some details. He claims he pushed back against Papadopoulos.
Did Mr. Papadopoulos mention his outreach to the Russian government during that meeting?
He made some comment to that effect,
yes,
as I remember after having read it in the newspaper.
I asked for yes or no. I don't have time.
Yes, all right.
There are reports that you shut George down, unquote, when he proposed that meeting with Putin. Is this correct, yes or no?
Yes. I pushed back.
When asked if he tried to prevent, quote, further outreach to the Russians after the meeting, Sessions told Congressman Nadler he was not aware of any further contacts and he did not have regular contact with Papadopoulos. Shannon?
All right, Ellison Barber, thank you very much. Well, GOP Congressman Louis Gohmert turned up the heat on the Attorney General today, raising serious concerns about Robert Mueller and Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein, among others. He joins us now to talk about that and the special chart he had today, and you brought a copy with you. Good to see you, Congressman. Thanks for coming in.
Great to see you too, Shannon.
All right,
Great
listen, there are all kinds of things on here. Russia, IRS, President Obama, Hillary Clinton, all kinds of things.
All connected.
Right, and there's some critics today who went through this chart and they weren't too impressed. They didn't know why you threw in some other things like Huma Abedin and other. They didn't understand how that was all connected.
It is.
But you were really hard on the Attorney General because he took it from the left and the right today, and you want to see more from him. What is this all about?
Well, it's just that the more you get into this, the more clear it is. This should be the item that had a special prosecutor. And in fact, we ought to be looking at Mr. Mueller. We ought to be looking at Mr. Rosenstein because, Shannon, this is a motion to seal records. This is information about the deal with Russia, the effort of Russia to corner the market on uranium. And
right, who's asking to seal them?
Pardon?
Who's asking to seal them?
Well, the name right there says Rod Rosenstein, and it has his assistant U.S. attorney, Adam Akey, that signed on his behalf.
Are you saying?
And they got I'm saying
you don't think they can be objective?
They were so involved in the initial investigation of Russia trying to corner the market that should have prevented Hillary Clinton from, and Eric Holder and others, from approving the sale of our uranium to Uranium One and ultimately with Russia. So with all the information they have and the sworn evidence they have sealed, I think they were knowing down the road if somebody goes back snooping and says you should never have allowed this uranium to be sold to Russia, gee, you had all this evidence. Well, they won't be able to see the evidence because they got a judge to seal it. And of course, Mueller was the FBI director that was involved in this investigation. So it is it's the biggest scandal that there's ever been in American history. It makes Teapot Dome look like just nothing but a whistle instead of a teapot.
So do you think that Mueller and Rosenstein need to step away from these investigations completely? Do you want a separate special counsel for different parts of the investigation?
Well, one of the things that I liked what I heard today was Attorney General Jeff Sessions basically saying, well, there's part of this I think that I can investigate, And it sounds like, and I'm encouraged that Jeff, the Attorney General Sessions, is digging in himself. And we're now finding out, actually, they've been investigating some of this. But not only do I think that Mueller and Rosenstein need to step down, it appears they need to be investigated as well. And we know from the FBI, well, the regulations that control special counsel and counsel in general at the DOJ, you cannot investigate anything if, for example, you have a close friend that would be in the investigation. Comey's central to all of this, and Comey's got to be investigated. He admitted that he leaked information to the New York Times, and it turns out there's, if you look at the FBI contract that he had to agree to, it's very clear the memorandum he did belongs to the FBI, and he leaked an official FBI document.
I don't think, and you probably don't think either, there's any reason or any way these gentlemen would step away from the duties they've been assigned and the roles they've been assigned. So that leaves us with talking about who could get rid of them. And you know there's so much talk that if the president stepped in and pushed them away, Lindsey Graham over on the Senate side says it'd be holy hell to pay, that it's going to look terrible. Just
exactly right.
Let them finish.
It's one of the things I love about you and your show. You cut right to the chase.
And we have great guests too.
But Mueller has known that, and if you look at the actions he's taken, the very day James Comey testified on the Hill that there was no evidence at all of collusion between Donald Trump and the Russians, then there were people that were immediately screaming, hey, why do we need a special counsel? We don't. Mueller's got to go. So what happens? That night, Mueller, or one of those working for him, leaked out, I am now investigating Trump for obstruction of justice. I told the president, the reason that he leaked that out was so that you could not now fire him, as some people were advocating, because then it would appear like another Saturday Night Massacre, and gee, now we got to impeach Trump because he. So, as I told you, you cannot fire him now because he set this up.
Right, the perception there would be a lot of trouble for the White House.
But we do need somebody to investigate Mueller, and as somebody starts investigating Mueller and they see the trail that Mueller has laid and left behind, including Mr. Rosenstein, then it will be very clear. It won't be the president asking them to step down. It'll be very clear they can't be investigating when they're a target.
Well, listen, we're going to need a little bit more time to continue investigating this, but we will, because people need to know it's all connected. Congressman Gohmert, it's great to have you in.
Shannon, it's great to be with you.
Thanks for coming in. See you again soon.
Thank you.
All right, tonight, yet another pillar of support for Judge Roy Moore is crumbling. The Alabama Senate candidate fighting to fill Jeff Sessions' open seat. He's facing multiple accusations of sexual misconduct from women who say they were just teens when they claim these incidents occurred. Moore spoke a short while ago at a church in Jackson, and he's still defiant. We'll have more on that coming up in just a minute, but meanwhile, Jonathan Seri has more details now. The latest from Gadsden, Alabama. Hi, Jonathan.
Fox News sources say the Republican National Committee is pulling its national field staffers out of the Alabama Senate race. Meanwhile, filings with the Federal Election Commission no longer list the RNC on a joint fundraising agreement with the Moore campaign. And Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell is calling on Moore to end his bid for the U.S. Senate.
Roy Moore should step aside. The women who've come forward are entirely credible. He's obviously not fit to be in the United States Senate.
Moore is firing back with a series of tweets directed at McConnell, including this one. Republican primary, strike one. Republican runoff, strike two. General election, TBD. 3 strikes and you're out, Mitch. Just days after the Washington Post reported allegations that Moore fondled a 14-year-old girl back in 1979 when he was 32, a new accuser has come forward. Beverly Young Nelson says she had just turned 16 when Moore, a frequent customer at the restaurant where she worked, offered her a ride home.
Mr. Moore reached over and began groping me, him putting his hands on my breast. I tried to open my car door to leave, but he reached over and he locked it so I could not get out.
I can tell you without hesitation, this is absolutely false. I never did what she said I did. I don't even know the woman. I don't know anything about her. I don't even know where the restaurant is or was.
Conventional wisdom suggests all the controversy will help Moore's opponent. Democrat Doug Jones has released a new commercial reaching out to Republican voters in Alabama.
Yep, I'm another Republican. I'm Steve Duncan. I want to be on the right side of history. That's why I'm voting for Doug Jones.
With no sign of Moore dropping out of the race anytime soon, he and Jones are scheduled to face off in the general election December 12. Shannon?
Jonathan Seri, thank you very much. Up next, more and more Democrats now publicly admitting they may have gotten it all wrong on President Bill Clinton and the numerous women who accused him of assaults, even rape. So what does it mean for the party if they follow through on their so-called real reckoning? An exclusive report next.
The young staffer, who's a young woman, went there and was greeted with a member in a towel.
Voting a hush-hush congressional slush fund used to quietly get rid of sex harassment claims on Capitol Hill, and it's all funded by you, the taxpayer. The renewed focus on sexual misconduct sweeping the nation, and particularly here in the nation's capital, has reporters and lawmakers revisiting past allegations against former President Bill Clinton. Chief Washington correspondent James Rosen tells us about one liberal commentator is calling a real reckoning for Democrats.
Shannon, good evening. In the tsunami of sexual harassment allegations that has subsumed American politics, media, and finance, one name, slowly but surely, has resurfaced.
Indeed, I did have a relationship with Ms. Lewinsky that was not appropriate.
Beyond his Oval Office affair with a 22-year-old intern, which led to impeachment, President Clinton was also accused of raping Juanita Broaddrick in a hotel room, groping Kathleen Willey, and other incidents similar to the allegations now roiling America. In this hashtag #MeToo moment, Michelle Goldberg writes in the New York Times, we should look clearly at the credible evidence that Juanita Broaddrick told the truth when she accused Clinton of raping her. Democrats are guilty of apologizing for Clinton when they shouldn't have.
I think people are starting to believe and realize that I was truly sexually assaulted by Bill Clinton.
In The Atlantic, Caitlin Flanagan says it was a pattern of behavior. It included an alleged violent assault. The women involved had far more credible evidence than many of the most notorious accusations that have come to light in the past 5 weeks. But Clinton, Flanagan notes, was not left to the swift and pitiless justice that today's accused men have experienced. Rather, he was rescued by a surprising force, machine feminism.
You look great!
Flanagan points to a 1998 Times op-ed by feminist icon Gloria Steinem, which overlooked Broaddrick to argue even if the allegations are true, the president is not guilty of sexual harassment. He is accused of having made a gross, dumb, and reckless pass at a supporter. President Clinton took no for an answer. The widespread liberal response to the sex crime accusations against Bill Clinton, Flanagan concludes, found their natural consequence 20 years later in the behavior of Harvey Weinstein. Stay loudly and publicly and extravagantly on the side of signal leftist causes, and you can do what you want in the privacy of your offices and hotel rooms.
Bill Clinton had been a great voice for women in public and a great violator of women in private. That's all been adjudicated. He's been impeached. He's paid a price. Now what we need to do is to call out men, call out all men to be accountable for saying what they see.
Liberal men are also chiming in, with MSNBC host Chris Hayes tweeting, as gross and cynical and hypocritical as the right's "what about Bill Clinton" stuff is, it's also true that Democrats and the center left are overdue for a real reckoning with the allegations against him, unquote. Shannon?
James, thank you very much. Well, a little-known law that seems to cloak sexual harassment cases against lawmakers in secrecy may soon get a makeover. Under the current framework, accusers are granted the right to sue only if they file a written statement within 180 days, undergo 30 days of counseling, and then mediation. And in the end, the lawmaker's identity is kept confidential, even if he or she is found guilty. To top it off, Democratic Congresswoman Jackie Speier says if there's a settlement, the taxpayers foot the bill and it's paid out of a U.S. Treasury fund, and it never goes public. Today, one of her GOP counterparts in the House described some of the charges leveled at lawmakers.
This member asked a staffer to bring them over some materials to their residence. And the young staffer, who's a young woman, went there and was greeted with a member in a towel. At that point, he decided to expose himself.
The Washington Post reports that between 1997 and 2014, that secret fund paid out more than $15 million to victims. Well, the sexual harassment and assault allegations against Harvey Weinstein shook Hollywood and sparked a ripple effect of victims coming forward in other industries, like right here on Capitol Hill. Now the impact is reaching far beyond U.S. borders. Inspired by the women and men who've spoken up, the Weinstein effect has gone global, with powerful men facing serious allegations worldwide. Let's talk about it now with Larry O'Connor, host of The Larry O'Connor Show, and contributing editor at Mediaite, and Richard Fowler, a Fox News contributor and radio talk show host. Good to see you tonight, gentlemen.
Good to see you, and good evening.
Okay, so listen, I used to practice as a sexual harassment attorney. To me, it's not like this stuff hasn't been happening. It's now that there's just a public conversation and people feel like they have a way to come and talk about it. It's not anything new, but Richard, it seems like the floodgates are now open.
It does seem like the floodgates are now open, and I think it speaks to a larger problem that exists in this country for a very long time. I think rape culture, as some would argue, has surrounded America for a very long time, and finally the chips in the wall are starting to sort of fall apart, and women are starting to come forward and tell their stories. And I think this is just part of the solution. I think we have to do a couple things beyond just women going out there and telling our stories. I think the second thing we've got to do, Shannon, is we've really got to work on educating men and boys as early as possible on how to treat women and to make sure that they don't make the same mistakes. And I think the other thing that we've got to do, which you don't hear a lot about, is for those men who've been falsely accused, there have to be space for them to tell their stories as a cautionary tale to other men, so they don't end up in the same mistakes, they don't end up in the same predicaments, and they're allowed to sort of say, I've heard about this and I'm going to stay away from it. And so I think we've got to do a little bit more to open up the space so we can truly, as a country, break down rape culture as we know it today.
Yeah, these are some difficult conversations to have, because some men say, well, if I ask her out and she says no, if I offended her, is that going to count as harassment? I mean, we have to have some common sense about it, but these tough conversations. So just since these things have broken in Hollywood and here in Washington and across this country, we've had the defense secretary in the UK step down. There are others there in top government positions in Italy, in France, in Israel. There are all kinds of allegations. I wanted to read something that came into us from a woman who was a journalist in Israel who made an accusation about another journalist there. And she's talking about this bigger problem. She says Weinstein ripped off a Band-Aid that covered the wounds and scars that so many women still carry in industries that are still predominantly male-led. And now that is off, I think it is time to examine and heal. She said this is not an act of revenge, but rather an opportunity for social reform.
Yeah.
Larry?
Yeah, and I think it is a very powerful thing, and I agree with much of what Richard said. I'm a little chagrined by the fact that now Democrats can just say, oh yeah, maybe we got it wrong about Bill Clinton 20 years ago. I mean, you worry about a rape culture in America. Juanita Broaddrick was ignored, ridiculed, demeaned, and absolutely trashed by the party elites, by Mrs. Clinton, by the way, for the last 20 years. And just now, suddenly, Democrats are seeing religion on this. In terms of this global suggestion that suddenly the Weinstein effect is affecting countries globally, it may be so, but I think it's important to point out that these are mostly Western, Judeo-Christian dominated countries. I think we still have a huge problem in the Middle East, in Sharia-oriented countries who embrace a very, very strict and intolerant view of Islam. Those countries have major problems with how they treat women.
Killing people and treating them like property and pushing people off buildings and stoning people alive. I mean,
yes.
Yeah, that's a totally different
It is
conversation
almost
beyond
impossible for a woman to prove a rape allegation in a country like that. Until we start seeing that, I don't think we can say there's a global movement. We're seeing some very sophisticated Western countries.
No, I tend to agree with that. And don't get me wrong, and I've said this before and I'll say it again, I think misogyny and I think rape culture doesn't know party affiliation.
Right, it shouldn't be, that shouldn't be a party conversation.
Right, and I think this is something it's wide-ranging. Like Democrats are guilty of it, Republicans are guilty of it, but I think we've got to do, now where we are as a nation with the Me Too campaign and other campaigns, we've got to do everything in our power to work on breaking it down and to work on making sure that both women and men go to safe workplaces and they go to safe schools and go to safe malls. And for that to happen, like I said at the beginning, we've got to be able to have these conversations in safe places.
All right, we're out of time, so very quickly.
I accept that, but I don't think we can underestimate the power of Bill Clinton getting a pass.
He did.
Because he had for 20. Well, no, he didn't get impeached over the Juanita Broaddrick case, and that was a sexual assault. Well, and I think that had a powerful influence on our culture.
I think it was today or in the last couple of days, there was an opinion piece in the Washington Times, or excuse me, in the New York Times that said, basically, I believe her, and we got that wrong. It's 25 years too late for Juanita Broaddrick, but the conversation continues. And you guys are going to stick around for some more conversation, so don't go anywhere. Coming up, what if the Germans held a climate change conference and the Trump delegation brought a lump of coal, a whole lot of coal to the party? Well, we're going to tell you how that went down. Stick around.
modern world, it pays to switch things up. And when you switch to Esurance, you can save time, worry, hassle, and, yep, money. In fact, drivers who switched from Geico to Esurance saved hundreds. That's auto and home insurance for the modern world. Esurance, an Allstate company. Click or call.
Having my mom around to help with my daughter means the world to me, so I got her a smartphone.
Amanda, I'm out front, honey.
It's the all-new Jitterbug Smart from Great Call. It's got one of the biggest, brightest screens, and with the built-in 5-star app, I know she can always get help.
One touch and you'll be immediately connected to a highly trained agent who can confirm your location, assess the situation, and get you the help you need.
For the holidays, get 25% off at Best Buy, Rite Aid, and Sears.
Being the little brother stinks. Hand-me-downs? No thanks. And with Mom's OxyClean laundry detergent, things won't get better anytime soon. I mean, look at these colors. I've worn this shirt like a gazillion times, and you can't even tell. And I'm not gonna take this lying down.
Introducing OxyClean laundry detergent. It reveals colors, restores whites, and removes stains, so clothes can stick around wash after wash.
Seriously?
Sorry, kiddo.
If your moderate to severe ulcerative colitis or Crohn's symptoms are holding you back, and your current treatment hasn't worked well enough, it may be time for a change. Ask your doctor about Entyvio, the only biologic developed and approved just for UC and Crohn's. Entyvio works at the site of inflammation in the GI tract and is clinically proven to help many patients achieve both symptom relief and remission. Infusion and serious allergic reactions can happen during or after treatment. Entyvio may increase risk of infection, which can be serious. PML, a rare, serious, potentially fatal brain infection caused by a virus, may be possible. This condition has not been reported with Entyvio. Tell your doctor if you have an infection, experience frequent infections, or have flu-like symptoms or sores. Liver problems can occur with Entyvio. If your UC or Crohn's treatment isn't working for you, ask your gastroenterologist about Entyvio. Entyvio, relief and remission within reach.
I enjoy the fresher things in life. Fresh towels, fresh soaps, and of course, TripAdvisor's freshest, lowest prices. So, if you're anything like me, you'll want to check TripAdvisor. We now instantly compare prices from over 200 booking sites to find you the lowest price on the hotel you want. Go on, try something fresh. TripAdvisor, the latest reviews, the lowest prices.
I don't want to sound paranoid, but do you think our recent online sales success seems a little strange?
Nah. Ever since we switched to FedEx Ground, business has been great. They're affordable and fast.
Maybe too affordable and fast. What if people aren't buying these books online, but they are buying them to protect their secrets?
Hi, Bill.
If that is your real name.
That's William, actually.
Affordable, fast FedEx Ground.
My matchmaker was awesome. She asked me a lot of questions that were driven to get to know me better.
With over 25 years of experience and millions of matches arranged, It's Just Lunch is the world's #1 personalized matchmaking service.
I loved working with my matchmaker. I would give feedback after every date.
It's Just Lunch set everything up. They set up the restaurant, they set up the date. They made it simple.
Find out what our matchmakers can do for you. We guarantee you'll go on dates. It's just lunch, but imagine the possibilities.
Tempur-Pedic's superior pressure-relieving comfort and our 90-day complete satisfaction trial will make tossing and turning a thing of the past. Plus, during our Veterans Day savings event, save up to $500 on select adjustable mattress sets. Find your exclusive retailer at TempurPedic.com.
The Trump administration's not backing down from a fight over fossil fuels. In fact, they're taking their arguments right to the heart of the matter at an international conference on climate change. Trace Gallagher is in our West Coast newsroom with more on that story. Hi, Trace.
Hi, Shannon. You know, when you show up at the United Nations Climate Change Conference in Germany and defend fossil fuels like natural gas and coal, the very energy sources that many scientists believe led to climate change, you're bound to get some pushback, and the Trump administration got just that. In fact, even before the White House and some top American energy officials got the chance to argue their case, as you can see, they were sung down and shouted down by audience members, which is certainly not surprising to former New York Mayor Michael Bloomberg, who was at the conference and who has spent millions of dollars on a campaign to shut down coal plants. Bloomberg said, quoting, promoting coal at a climate summit is like promoting...
The Trump administration's not backing down from a fight over fossil fuels. In fact, they're taking their arguments right to the heart of the matter at an international conference on climate change. Trace Gallagher is in our West Coast newsroom with more on that story. Hi, Trace.
Hi, Shannon. You know, when you show up at the United Nations Climate Change Conference in Germany and defend fossil fuels like natural gas and coal, the very energy sources that many scientists believe led to climate change, you're bound to get some pushback. And the Trump administration got just that. In fact, even before the White House and some top American energy officials got the chance to argue their case, as you can see, they were sung down and shouted down by audience members, which is certainly not surprising to former New York Mayor Michael Bloomberg, who was at the conference and who has spent millions of dollars on a campaign to shut down coal plants. Bloomberg said, quoting, "Promoting coal at a climate summit is like promoting tobacco at a cancer summit." But despite those comments and a number of similar newspaper headlines, there is no indication the Trump administration is advocating that fossil fuels are the answer to climate change. Instead, the White House argument seems to be that for the near future, fossil fuels are unavoidable. Listen.
So without a question, fossil fuels will continue to be used. And we would argue that it's in the global interest to make sure that when fossil fuels are used, that it's as clean and efficient as possible.
Even renewable energy advocates acknowledge that hundreds of millions of people in countries across Asia and Africa rely on natural gas and coal because it's affordable and abundant. They say the goal should not be eradicating coal, which they call unrealistic, instead burning cleaner coal, which has proven to greatly reduce carbon emissions. Shannon.
All right. An interesting showdown there on that front. Trace Gallagher, thank you very much. Sure. Well, shock in Northern California, where a gunman apparently randomly targeted 7 locations, killing 4 people. It could have been much worse if not for quick work by a local elementary school. Teachers say they heard gunfire from about a quarter-mile away. The school went into lockdown, and authorities say that potentially prevented massive loss of life at the school. The gunman apparently left the school grounds and then was killed in a shootout with police. Coming up, big news on tax reform. We'll hear from congressional firebrand Dave Bratt. Apparently progress that could mean real tax cuts coming for you. Stick around. Tonight, tax reform and Obamacare, both issues wrapped into the still developing Senate plan, including a repeal of the individual mandate as part of tax reform, sparking strong reaction on both sides of the aisle. Chief Congressional Correspondent Mike Emanuel reports from Capitol Hill.
Yeah, we're optimistic that inserting the individual mandate repeal would be helpful, and that's obviously the view of the Senate Finance Committee Republicans as well.
House Republican leaders say they intend to pass their tax reform package in the House this Thursday.
Washington has been propping up a tax system riddled with special loopholes for the well-connected. This bill changes this. We are cutting taxes for middle and low-income families.
President Trump plans to rally House Republicans before that pivotal floor vote. On Twitter, the president sung the bill's praises. A great tax bill with the middle class getting big tax cuts. One question for leadership remains the SALT deduction and how many Republicans from states with high property and other taxes like New York, New Jersey, and California would vote yes. New York's Claudia Tenney says she's leaning yes.
Well, if we get the House version with a compromise on SALT, that's something I can support, but the Senate pulled it out, and it's going to be real hard for New York.
New York's Dan Donovan says he's a no.
And because of the elimination of the state and local tax deduction, it's just harmful to New Yorkers.
Democrats suggest when the American people run the numbers, they won't be happy.
When the public understands what's in this bill that harms working families versus who the true beneficiaries of the bulk of the tax cuts are, they're going to be really angry.
The House will be in order. And while there are signs that Republicans within the House are coming together, so far that isn't the case between the House and Senate.
This thing is going to go into a conference committee where we're going to deal with the kinds of concerns and issues that people want dealt with, and we feel good where we are.
Where the Senate is fine-tuning its tax overhaul in the Finance Committee.
We still don't have the full text of the bill,
This evening, the House Rules Committee met to prepare the House version of tax reform for the House floor. Sources suggest they are going to go forward in the House without the Obamacare aspect, feeling like they could add it later in a House and Senate conference. Shannon?
All right, Mike Emanuel live on Capitol Hill. Well, while Senate leaders threw everyone a curveball today by announcing their decision to include a repeal of the individual mandate in their version of the tax bill, the House is forging ahead. Speaker Ryan telling reporters they will stick to their original plan. Doesn't include that mandate repeal, at least for now. Joining us now to discuss, Congressman Dave Brett, member of the House Budget Committee and member of the Conservative Freedom Caucus, our favorite wonky person.
Thank you,
Our
Shannon.
favorite wonk.
That's right.
Okay, so this individual mandate thing, not happening in the House. It's going to happen in the Senate. There's some question about whether it will help or hurt the package there. I want to play a little bit of what GOP Senator John Kennedy had to say.
Right.
I support repealing the mandate as a part of our tax cut legislation, so long as it doesn't upset the apple cart so we can't get to 50 votes.
You think that could be a make or break in the Senate for getting to that magic number?
No, I think they're there. I think they got the votes, and now I think it's a winner on us. It saves us $300 billion, and the folks might recall if we would have repealed Obamacare fully, we would have $1 trillion, right? So this is a third of that amount, and that'll help to get tax rates lower for the middle class and S corps, small businesses, and C corps. And then last Tuesday in Virginia election, federal health care issues were the #1 issue at the state level elections, right? Governor, lieutenant governor. But the #1 exit poll issue was the federal health care, and people are not happy because the Obamacare premiums are going up 40%, and no one knew to message on that. So in hindsight, you can see that.
Well, and that's such an interesting thing because so many of the hikes and the requirements that were built in to Obamacare came as he was leaving, or he would never have to face re-election again. So there are new surprises all the time.
And the system, I mean, if you're a little cynical, was designed to fail, so it's imploding. Now we're going to have to subsidize big insurance, right? Like, I mean, no one wants to bail out anything these days. There's no taste for that. And then what everybody forgets on the tax side is all you have to do is beat the runner behind you. The Democrats a month ago put in their tax bill raising taxes $10 trillion. People can Google it. They won't believe it. But it's the Democrat Progressive Caucus budget, 107 votes, so it's for real. Raising taxes $10 trillion. Raise spending by $11 trillion. The Democrats have more debt and deficit than we do when we cut taxes.
Listen, that doesn't pull well. Nobody. I do occasionally get these emails from people, the patriotic millionaires, and say, "Hey, we want to pay more taxes." There's nothing stopping you from writing a check to the U.S. Treasury. Go right ahead. But most people, that doesn't work with their family budgets. All right, now there are some skeptics, as you might imagine, across the aisle. You don't expect any Dem votes on in the House side.
I doubt it.
Going to be tough to come by in the Senate as well. Here's what the Senate's top Democrat, Chuck Schumer, had to say about this whole thing that the Republicans, he says, have cooked up.
They're cutting taxes on the wealthy and taking health care away from millions and raising the premiums of millions of others, all to help reduce taxes on the rich. Does that sound familiar? Well, it does to us, because that's why the health care bill failed. And that is why their tax bill is going to fail as well.
All right, is that an accurate assessment of what you guys are proposing? Just strictly factual?
No, I mean, on the fact, the simplest way to do it is just average family income is $60,000 in Virginia. That family making $60,000 with 2 kids is going to get $1,200 back, right? So there's a middle class tax cut, right? Are there going to be some moving parts, right, for business deductions and complexities? Sure, right? But on average, it's the small businesses are going to get a tax cut. The C corps are going to go down to 20. It's going to make us competitive with the rest of the world. And the middle class is getting a tax cut. We wish we could do more, but we're limited by $1.5 trillion. And, you know, you can, if Senator Schumer was, had it right, then why are they scared of us passing the bill, right? If it's a travesty, it's not a travesty. The most important thing, it's going to create economic growth. No one even knows what that looks like, right? From Bernie through Trump, the election last time was about the average middle class wages, the forgotten man. That was the election. Wages have been flat for 30 years. And so if you want to raise wages, there's only one way. I taught economics for 20 years to raise wages, and that's to increase productivity. Well, what increases productivity? Capital equipment. And so our tax bill does immediate expensing for capital equipment. So the guys working at General Motors or wherever, right, working on the assembly lines with capital robotics and everything, advanced engineering, et cetera, that's the in thing. That's why we make more than poor countries, right? We got more capital. We're incentivizing capital. It's a total winner. So the Dems are a little nervous.
All right, well, we'll see. We know they're not going to give us. By the way, Professor, thank you very much. I used to do, I shouldn't admit this, crossword puzzles in my econ classes.
No,
because I got a little bit lost. But I got what you were saying there. I should have taken your class. All right, come back soon.
Anytime. Thank you, Shannon.
All right, up next, did President Trump's pressure cause Sessions to cave on the Clintons? We'll debate next. Returning to our top story, Attorney General Jeff Sessions weighing in on Uranium One and the Clintons. A couple weeks ago, President Trump said this about the Justice Department under Jeff Sessions.
The saddest thing is that because I'm the President of the United States, I am not supposed to be involved with the Justice Department. I'm not supposed to be involved with the FBI. I'm not supposed to be doing the kind of things that I would love to be doing. And I'm very frustrated by it.
All right, so is Sessions bending now to political pressure? Who better to ask than Larry O'Connor, host of the Larry O'Connor Show and Fox News contributor? That soundbite was from his show. Fox News contributor Richard Fowler. Great to see you both.
Good to see you, Shannon.
Okay, so you talked to the president. He expressed clearly, I think he knows there's a line he's not supposed to cross, but it's hard. He can't help himself. He's frustrated.
Yeah, and I think the sad part of that, when he says it, the saddest thing, it's taken a little out of context. My question to him was from the perspective of my listeners. I talk every day for 3 hours here on WMAL in Washington, D.C., and I said, this is what I hear all the time from the listeners, Shannon, is that they are confused and don't understand that they see all of these things with the Clinton family, with the Clinton Foundation, with Uranium One, with the emails, with all of the things that they believe deserve a fair and just investigation, and it doesn't get investigated, and they want to know why. And that's the reason that the president answered that way. And I think that it's a good sign that Attorney General Sessions has said that he is looking into this and investigating, possibly bringing a special counsel in. And I hope it's from the outside, like way outside, because it can't be from D.C. here, someone who's worked in the Justice Department, worked in Washington, D.C., because sadly, everyone's intermingled here.
Everyone, small town.
Yeah.
It really is.
And everyone has fingerprints.
Everybody has worked together here. Everybody knows each other. That's just a fact.
I'm saying the DA from Nome, Alaska, bring him in and let him investigate.
You might enjoy a little visit here in D.C. And so, listen, the Attorney General took heat from both sides of the aisle on this today. I want to play a little bit of what he got from GOP Congressman Jim Jordan about this.
Well, Mr. Comey is no longer the director of the FBI.
Thank goodness.
We have an excellent man of integrity and ability in Chris Wray, and I think he's going to do an outstanding job, and I'm very happy about that.
He's not here today, Attorney General.
And I would say,
you are, and I'm asking for a special counsel.
The time of the gentleman and I would say looks like is not enough basis to appoint a special counsel.
And listen, Richard, yesterday, Jim Jordan, along with another Congressman Getz, they had an op-ed out basically saying to Jeff Sessions, do your job, outlining all these things they think he should be investigating. And we don't know if he is or not, because they can't publicly disclose a lot of that.
Right, and they can't. That's what the FBI does. They can't disclose investigations. But as far as Uranium One goes, there actually was some investigations in 2015. A lot of field offices investigated Uranium One. It was eventually bumped up to the national FBI office. It was investigated. At that point in time, career investigators, career prosecutors said there's not enough evidence here. And just a little bit of background: when we decide to sell uranium, not saying that this was a good idea to sell this uranium. That's not what I'm saying. But when we decide to make any uranium deal, there's 9 agencies that vote on this, where there's 7 cabinet secretaries. One of those votes happened to be the State Department, and there are also 2 administration officials from the Nuclear Regulatory Agency, or the Commission, rather, excuse me. Hillary was one of those votes. So if Hillary were to sway this commission, that means she would have to sort of be in collusion with all 8 other members and say, now you guys all need to vote the way I'm telling you to vote so I can help my husband benefit Richard, this one donor who, at the time, this one particular donor had divested all of his funds in Uranium One to begin with.
But you understand that it raises questions that at the same time, a bank connected to this paid Bill Clinton $500,000 for a speech, and then millions of dollars flowed into the Clinton Foundation from groups connected to this deal. So that's under investigation.
Right, but the individual, this all comes from a book called Clinton Cash, right? And the individual they're talking about had divested his interest 2 years prior to this deal even happening.
All right, Richard, wouldn't you agree that all of those agencies that had a part in this should have known that there was an active investigation about blackmail and payoffs? Don't you think that those agencies who made this decision about the uranium
saying this was a good decision.
should have known that Hillary Clinton and the Clinton Foundation, and shouldn't have Congress known? That's the other problem. The Obama administration and all of those agencies, the Justice Department, withheld information to the Intelligence Committee.
Right,
that's what should be investigated.
We got to leave it there. And by the way, there are 2 House committees investigating this, and who knows if the feds are or not. We'll find out.
But the feds investigated in 2015. That's the point I'm trying to make.
All right, we're back with more right after this. now for night court. A couple of years ago, during the Obama administration, the owner of a Michigan-based meatpacking business said that the Department of Agriculture had inspectors who threatened to shut down his company because his break room contained a pamphlet promoting traditional marriage. The Trump administration's USDA just came out with a new policy aimed at preventing those kinds of incidents. It says that believers can feel free to express their views at work, whatever they happen to be. Well, more than 15,000 scientists have signed a quote-unquote warning to humanity. The letter describes an environmental apocalypse right around the corner because of so-called man-made disasters, including but not limited to climate change. The same group issued similar warnings 25 years ago, saying all hopes to avert the threats would be lost or could be as soon as a decade, which would have been 2002. Well, most watched, most trusted, and most grateful you spent the evening with us. Good night from Washington. For Fox News at Night, I'm Shannon Bream.